I play Athena and the narrator.
Did you want Grace's costume?
How generous.
Play,
Telemachus.
and Thomas plays.
Odysseus.
Perfect. And our scene is about Odysseus and Telemachus planning to wreak destruction upon the suitors.
All
So
right.
everyone prepare yourselves for a
Blood.
work of utter art that will be astounding and exceptional.
She'll never be the same.
And I begin as a narrator. So he packed off the swineherd, who put on his boots and set out for town. Athena did not fail to see him go. She approached in the form of a woman, a fine, tall woman, one quick and handy, and well up to her work. She approached along the enclosing wall. She stood right opposite the door. But Telemachus did not see her, for gods do not show themselves manifestly to everyone. Odysseus saw her, and so did the dogs. But they did not bark. They merely whimpered and slunk to the other side of the barton. They merely whimpered and slunk to the other side of the barton. She signed him with her brows. He noted it and approached her. Then she said to him, "Prince Laertes, you are a man ever ready. Now is the time to tell your son everything. Hide nothing from him, and contrive with him death and destruction for the pretenders. Remember, I will not be far from you and your son in the thick of the fight." So Athena stroked him with her golden rod and covered him in a spotless raiment. She made him the picture of youth and strength. Once more, he was dark and tan. His cheeks filled out. A dark beard covered his chin. When her work was done, she departed, and Odysseus went back into the hut. He looked at Telemachus, and Telemachus was filled with amazement, but he was afraid. For gods do not show themselves manifestly to everyone. And he feared it might be some god. Then he said to him,
You are very different now, stranger, from what you were before. I must say, your clothes are very much changed, and your color is not the same at all. Surely you must be a god, one of the gods who rule the broad heavens. Be gracious, and let us make sacrifice to thee, yes. And make offerings wrought with gold. Spare me, good Lord.
I tell you, I am no god. Why do you rank me with the immortals? No. I'm your father, for whom you have mourned and wept so often for my arrival. And put up with the violence and wrongdoings of men.
Then Odysseus kissed his son and let the tears run freely down his cheeks. Until that moment, he had always held them back. But Telemachus still had doubts as to whether this man was actually his father. So he said plainly,
No, you cannot be Odysseus, my father, but you are merely a being more than a man, come to bewitch me, to make my grief greater than it already was. It is impossible for any man to have contrived all this by his own power, and no one but very God could make one young or old at will, but you've done it so easily. But a moment ago, you were an old man, dressed dressed all in rags like a beggar. But now surely you shine like one of the gods who rule the broad heavens.
My son, it is your own father at home once more, and there's nothing to astound you or make you wonder overmuch. I tell you truly, that no other Odysseus will ever come here, but only I, as you see me. After many sufferings and many wanderings, return after 20 long years right to my native land. This indeed is a doing of Athena, the queen of victory. She has made me such as I am, and she has power. A young beggar, now an old beggar, now a young man, in handsome dress. It is easy for the gods who rule the broad heavens both to exalt mortal man and to bring him low.
Then Telemachus threw his arms around his noble father and burst into tears. They sat there, throbbing and shaking from the relief of that long strain. Like a pair of seagulls who quiver and utter their shrill cries after their young are stolen from them. So too would Telemachus and Odysseus have remained until the sun came up. But suddenly Telemachus said to his father,
My dear father, what ship has brought you to Ithaca? Who were the crew? Well, I don't suppose you walked all the way here, did you?
Well, my son, I will tell you the whole story. Those famous team of that Phoenicians, they brought me here. You know they're always ready to help a traveler on his way. I slept through all through the voyage, and I was asleep when they put me ashore in Ithaca. They gave me splendid treasures, gold, bronze, and plenty of woven stuffs. All these lie in a cave, but by the grace of God. And now I have come home to this place at the bidding of Athena, that we may make our plans for the death of our enemies. Now then, count over the men for me, and tell me how many they are, and who they are. Then I will consider carefully whether we should face them alone, or if we should look for others.
My father, I've always heard great things of you, bold in strength and fight, and of your great wisdom. But this is simply too much to bear. I am astounded at the very thought of it. It is impossible for two such men to fight a whole host, all very strong men. But these men do not number just 10 or 20 like any normal men, but many, many more. Listen now, and I'll count them up for you. From Delition, there are 250 lads, picked men, and with 6 of their servants as well. From Same, 4 and 20 such fellows, 20 from Zakynthos, and 12 from Ithaca itself, the best in the island. They also have with them Medon, the marshal, and a fine singing man as well, along with a few good carvers. But I'm afraid that if we should attack them together in the hall, you might bitterly rue your day of vengeance. If you happen to think of somebody who'd be willing to help us, do think you would be a faithful and willing ally.
Very well. See what you say to this. Do you think Athena will be enough for us? With Father Zeus? Or must I think of someone else to help us?
No. Those are good ones, certainly. Surely, though they live up in the clouds, they do rule over all men and gods as well.
Those two most certainly will not be long absent from the fierce battle when we and my supplanters meet and find out between us. But now, you must go home at dawn and mix them all as usual. I will come later, for the swineherd shall bring me like some wretched old beggar. If they insult me when I get there, you must hardly know how to see it. Even if they drag me by the legs or throw things at me, just look on and control yourself. But you may ask them not to be fools if you can speak politely. They will not listen to you, I am sure of that. because the day of their fate is at hand. Another thing I want you to remember carefully. When Athena in her wisdom shall reveal to me that the time has come, I will give you a nod. So be on the lookout, and take away all weapons and shields which hang about in the hall, and pack them into the corner of one of the rooms upstairs. Every one, don't leave one behind. If any of them ask what has become of the stuff, speak politely, and say, I have put them away out of the smoke. Even now, they're by no means the same as when my father has left them. The smoke is quite spoiled. And there's something else you mustn't forget. I have just thought of it. You may take a drop too much and quarrel. You may make a mess of your supper and your wedding together. You know the saying, bare steel in sight draws men to fight. But you may leave enough for us two alone. 2 swords and 2 spears, and a couple of leather shields, handy if you want them. As for the others, Pallas Athena and Zeus All-Wise will keep their minds at rest. Another thing you must be careful to remember, as you are my true son, and my own flesh and blood. Let not one single soul know that Odysseus has come home, not even Laertes, not the swineherd, none of the servants, not your mother herself, only you and me. And we will find out the temper of the women and try some of the farmhands. We'll see if someone somewhere fears us, respects us, and who cares nothing and only despises you for a boy.
Oh, my father, time will show what my spirit is. Indeed, there is no slackness in me. But I must say, I don't think this will be of much use to either of us, to be honest. You must judge, of course, but you will waste a great deal of time in going all around the farms and having a try at each and every man. And all the while, those others, they're in our house, fastening on our goods like brigands, and sparing absolutely nothing. I should recommend you to find out which of the women have disgraced you, and which of them are innocent, of course. But I would not go around to all the crofts and shanties and merely explore. Leave that for afterwards. If indeed, in sober truth, you have a sign from Zeus Almighty.
Like a pair of seagulls whose father and son have left the sea to hunt for fish and come back to see the mother being courted by other seagulls, so too did Odysseus and Telemachus return from their travels and discuss and plan and contrive against those evil suitors. The end.
Oh.